Hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. You joined me this morning at a train station, and yes, believe it or not, this is a train station. This is Mawddach train station, and it's a request stop on this particular line. So you have to basically stick your hand out and stop the driver if you want the train to stop. This station is about 1.5 miles outside Barmouth itself, where I'm staying for 5 nights. But to access this station, you need to either walk along the Mawddach estuary from Dolgellau, or in the opposite direction. If you walk from Barmouth, you can get here fairly easily. But of course, walking from Barmouth, you do have to cross the Barmouth Bridge to get across the estuary. And in a few moments' time, I'll be able to see a very good scene that includes that bridge, so I'll take a photo of that when I get there. But for now, I'm not actually stopping here to catch the train. The reason I wanted to stop here, it just seemed like a good starting point to start the vlog. Now if I turn right around, you'll see behind me, just there, that hill is Dinas Olai, where I was walking in my previous vlog, and just below that, I don't know how well you can see it, behind that telegraph pole is the town of Barmouth. And I've come across the bridge from over in Barmouth, across the estuary, and now I'm going to carry on along the estuary back to Dolgellau. From there, I'll get a bus back into Barmouth later in the day. But in the meantime, I'd like to stop and take some photos along the estuary, because I know, having walked along it several times in the past, that there are some beautiful compositions along there. So I'm going to get going and see if I can find my first composition of the day. So a little bit of local history for you. That station that I was at Mawddach, is the point where the old railway line used to cut inland from the coastline near Barmouth, and then it would cut in and travel all the way along inland to Dolgellau, and from there it would carry on into the centre of Wales and then further across over towards Shrewsbury. However, in the 1960s, Dr. Beeching famously culled and closed quite a lot of railway lines in this country, and one of those was the line that used to run along this path that I'm walking along now. But fortunately, the railway line at Mawddach continues now further down the coast, along the western coast of Wales, and then it does actually cut inland further south away from the estuary. But since that has closed, since the old line closed, the actual track bed of the original railway line, which is what I'm walking along here, you can see behind me, this track bed now forms the Mawddach Trail, which runs all the way from Barmouth to Dolgellau, and it runs along the Mawddach estuary, which is exactly the walk that I wanted to do today. And I'm currently coming to a cutting a little way along here where I'll start to see some views of the beautiful estuary itself. I've already started seeing mountains either side of the estuary, but not yet spotted the estuary itself yet. Now, from Mawddach station along this trail, it is about 8 miles walk into Dolgellau, so I've got a long old trek ahead of me, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've gone a fair distance already, to be quite honest with you, but I think it's going to be about lunchtime when I arrive in Dolgellau, which is good, because that means obviously I can stop in a pub and have my lunch. Anyway, for now I'm going to carry on and see if I can find a few compositions along the estuary here. So stick with me and we'll see what we can find. So there are 2 reasons to stop in this particular spot. The first one is very much about composition, and the second one is about health and safety. Every now and then the estuary curves and cuts into the land and creates these very small strips of land in the middle of the estuary itself where the water doesn't go, and that makes a very interesting composition tool. Foreground interest here, this strip of land in front of the hills behind, so I've stopped here to take a photo of that. But also, secondly, it's getting very warm now and I can feel myself starting to burn. I did apply some sun cream before I came out this morning, but I've just stopped here as well to apply some more sun cream, which was a good idea. So I'm glad I managed to get this shot at the same time. So this land around here, obviously with it being an estuary, is very, very flat. And this point here is just by the village of Mawddach. And it's the point where during the Second World War, enemy tanks would have driven up the estuary from the sea and tried to get onto land here at Mawddach. And you can see just behind me, these concrete structures here were the tank traps that were built by the British Army to try and prevent enemy tanks getting on land here at Mawddach. Really interesting spot, and obviously those traps themselves are still fully intact, so they must not have been used for the original purpose, but they do make an interesting point to stop and have a chat about. I've taken a photo here. I'm not sure it's a very good photo, but I'll show it you anyway, just because I wanted to simply document these tank traps. But also, just along the path a little way, there's a picnic bench just here behind the tree. And obviously it's a spot where people come to stop quite regularly and have a picnic. Nobody there at the moment because it's not yet lunchtime, and I think in a couple of hours there's going to be a few people around that table having the lunch. Anyway, I'm going to move on and see how far I get along this trail. So I've finally got my first view of Barmouth Bridge behind me. You probably can't see it just over in this direction, just here. But I'm going to get the 100 to 400mm lens out now and take a photo of that. It's got to be 100 to 400 really, because I'm so far away from the bridge now that I've got to get much closer to it using a longer lens. Should be a good image though, because there's quite a lot going on around it that I like the look of. And I really, really like that bridge that I walked across earlier. So I want you to have a look at it as well. Here's the image. So I've stopped here for a couple of reasons. The first one really is just to stop and admire the view and to have a look at all these cows grazing behind me on the estuary bed itself. Obviously the tide hasn't come in yet, so they're safe for the time being, but I would imagine that they'll be coming off that ground fairly soon to get themselves back onto a slightly higher level where they won't get drowned when the tide comes in a little bit later. But also the other reason that I wanted to stop here was to apply a bit more sun cream. I've been walking for almost an hour now since I last took a photo of Barmouth Bridge, and the reason is I've been walking along looking for something in the foreground to lead the eye into the image, but there's just been nothing except banks of dry sand. So as I'm walking along the estuary, it's all very, very flat, and it's all very, very flat land, and the sand itself is essentially what lines the base of the estuary when the tide comes in. But obviously at the moment the tide's out, so you've just got flat expanses of sand everywhere. One or two rivulets of water every now and then, but nothing particularly special that's worth using as a foreground interest. So I've stopped here just to catch my breath really. It's not really anything to photograph, but I will keep moving on, and in about 45 minutes I could well be at a pub having my lunch. So I'm still on my way towards the pub, but I wanted to stop here because just behind me I found an area of interest that I might want to stop and get the long lens out for. Just across the way here on the opposite side of the estuary there's a hillside with an area of managed woodland along the hillside, and you can see in one or two spots there are bare patches where the trunks of the trees really stick out very nicely and stand out on the side of that hill. So I think I'm going to get the 100 to 400mm lens out here, zoom in on that and see if I can find an interesting composition there that shows off those beautiful tree trunks. So this is an interesting shot. I'm glad I stopped, to be quite honest with you. So I'm just a few minutes away from the pub now where I want to have my lunch, But the reason I've stopped here, not just to have my lunch, is because there's also an image here that I wanted to recreate. I took an image out onto the estuary of a headland that just sticks out just onto the estuary here, not far from the pub. And I took it back in December of 2021, and I've come back here to recreate the image again. Now I want to recreate that image because back in the winter it looked absolutely fantastic anyway, and I think it's going to look even better in the summer. I have photographed from this area before in the summer, and I know that some of the images are superb anyway, so I'm going to recreate that image. But also obviously I'm going to stop and have my lunch here, and then once I've done that I'm going to head into Dolgellau. I think for the time being though I'm going to leave the vlog here, because I've got about 40 minutes to walk into Dolgellau, and I know there's nothing really there that I want to photograph along the way. So I will show you the image that I'm recreating right now. I'm going to be using the 100 to 400mm lens. Previously I'd shot this with the 70 to 300mm lens, so I don't know whether I'm going to get a better or worse shot with this, but we'll soon find out, and hopefully this one works very well. And then once I've done that, I'm going to get my lunch in the pub and head into Dolgellau. But in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this vlog, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Please also remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.